Hello my stars and welcome back to my channel. I'm Basil and today I will be reading a Stranger Things fic titled Some Kind of Haunted by Lavheart on AO3. This is a multi-chapter fic, so of course it will be in multiple parts. Now, here's a summary. That is to say, he knows her. He knows when something is wrong. And right now, Steve can tell something is bothering Robin, or something isn't right with Robin. Chapter 1. Seemed like the right thing at the time. The worst part about the past few weeks, Steve decides, is that he does not truly know when Robin started acting weird. Maybe it started 2 days ago when Robin took one step towards the group and completely passed out, collapsing onto the ground and waking up not 5 minutes later with no explanation. Maybe it started 4 days ago when Robin had started the day with a low fever and ended it beside the toilet, every moment coming with the risk of vomiting another time. Maybe it started a week ago when Robin had gone a full day without eating and had just shrugged it off with a wave of her hand and I just wasn't hungry. Maybe it started 3 weeks ago when Robin had started sleepwalking out of the blue, leaving after everyone had fallen asleep and returning with no recollection of ever getting out of bed. Maybe it started too many weeks ago when Robin had first started complaining about trouble sleeping. Maybe it started 1 year and 7 months ago, nearly 8 now, when the kind of apocalypse began. Maybe it started when Max had died, although she was brought back and is currently awake. Maybe it started over 2 years ago, with bathroom-filled confessions and her tear-filled blue eyes illuminated by harsh lighting, with blood and vomit and newfound trauma. Maybe it started with Robin pressed against his back, unknown drugs and the threat of death blinding them together in the blink of an eye. Maybe. He just doesn't know. He wishes he did, but something isn't quite right. She's his best friend. He knows her like the back of his hand, and vice versa. The two of them have run into danger for each other countless times, their battles becoming a dance of one jumping in front of the other to take the hit, their fury intertwined and fear shared. That is to say, he knows her. He knows when something is wrong. And right now, Steve can tell that something is bothering Robin. Something serious. The last time he remembered her acting normal was weeks and weeks ago, just before a patrol with Nancy. The two had come back injured, but Robin in particular had gained a haunted look to her, as though she'd seen something she shouldn't have. Now, Steve doesn't want to make any assumptions. However, she hadn't looked or acted right since. But maybe he's completely wrong, and it's just how she's been affected by her second encounter with the possible end of the world. Steve's not stupid. He knows it can't be easy for her. Him and Nancy and Jonathan, they've all been desensitized, for lack of a better word, to this type of danger. Robin, however, had only been here for 2 years now. He forgets, sometimes, that he and Robin hadn't been bonded for their whole lives, that they had other lives before each other, that she hated him before she met him. But that isn't the point. What is the point is that she's sleepwalking again, and she's nowhere to be found. Either that, or she just decided to leave for no reason. Either way, Steve is concerned. "Robin," he calls out wearily, as if that'll do anything. She's not in the house. Although she was spending the night, and she isn't anywhere outside. With a tired groan, he pushes himself out of bed and promptly falls off. He simply huffs and rises to his feet, unwilling to dwell on such a simple mistake. He exits his house, squinting in an attempt to spot Robin in the distance. She's not there, obviously. So he sighs, locks his door, and heads out. It takes him close to an hour to find any trace of her. In the darkness, he shouts her name every now and then, but never receives a response. He's half ready to head back home when he finally sees Robin, in front of the Creel house. She's just standing there, unmoving, silent. It scares him a little, if he's honest, because the last time he saw someone so still, it was Nancy, back when she was cursed. Wait, was she actually cursed? Was she just given a vision? Or had she actually been in danger that night? Now that he thinks about it, he doesn't actually know. Whatever, not the point. "Robin!" Steve calls out wearily, tiredness long gone now. Robin, what are you doing out here? She doesn't respond, doesn't give any indication that she's heard him. But no, that can't be right. He's not that far away from her, and he's not speaking that quietly. Plus, Robin has always had freakishly good hearing. You two are both extremely loud, she said in 1985, but nobody else had heard the two bickering and failing to translate. Nobody but her. So realistically, she should be able to hear him. And Robin isn't the type to ignore him, not unless she's angry at him for some reason. And she'd seemed normal just a few hours ago, so why would she suddenly be mad at him? And if she's not mad at him, why would she not be responding? Something isn't right. He makes his way over to her, repeating her name the whole time, and still she doesn't respond. It's only when he clasps a hand on her shoulder that she seems to startle back into reality. She inhales sharply, shoulders tensing and rolling back, eyes widening with a flash of something like fear, before she finally seems to realize her surroundings and calms down slightly. She looks at him cluelessly, helplessly, and he knows that this is another sleepwalking situation. Steve, how'd I get here? There's a genuine confusion in her voice, not a single drop of untruth. Did you bring me out here? He shakes his head. No. He sighs. You were sleepwalking again. I just found you here. Robin groans disappointedly. Thought I was done with that. It's been like a whole week since the last time I was sleepwalking. Steve quietly debates telling her that he found her in the front of the lab just 3 nights ago. He doesn't, but he does bite his lip anxiously and glances away. She doesn't need to know about that, not when nothing came of it. Come on, he murmurs, wrapping one arm around her shoulder and squeezing her gently. Let's get you home. But she hesitates. And so he hesitates too. And for a while, they just stand there in silence. Nothing to take away from the moment. Nothing except the silence. Melodious chirping of nearby crickets and the occasional owl hooting in the distance. Nothing except the wind ruffling their hair and leaves. Nothing except their breaths and the cold chill of the air. Nothing except them. So why does Steve feel like someone else is with them? He looks around, just to make sure. Checks the surrounding area once, twice, thrice, and finds nothing each time. It's just being back here that's making me anxious, he tells himself, but his shoulders still tense up and his breath still catches in his throat. And he can't ignore the creeping dread that crawls up his chest, through his throat until he feels like he could open his mouth and spit it out. And then suddenly Robin is nudging him and turning both of them around, and his brain registers that she wants to leave, and so they leave. Slowly but surely, neither one letting go of the other as they go. He slows briefly to turn and look back at the Creel house. He can't shake the feeling that something is watching. The Creel house, he starts, and it wouldn't make sense if it was anyone else. But it's Robin. And so it does. This is the second time I found you in front of it. I'm getting worried, Robs. I know. You just started sleepwalking out of the blue like 3 weeks ago, and you're ending up in front of the Creel house and the Watergate the one time, and I don't even know where else. I know, Steve, I know. He watches as she walks away towards the stairs, and he follows her. They head upstairs in relative silence, Steve chewing at his lip as his thoughts race and Robin's not meeting his eye. He doesn't question it when she walks into his room. He doesn't question it when she sits in his bed. When she curls up and lays her head on the pillow, however, he starts to realize that she's just going back to sleep. Robin, he sighs as he sits next to her, gently nudging her shoulder. She looks up at him, pleading, Steve, I'm tired. Can we please just go back to sleep? I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Something in his gut screams at him to decline, to pull her out of bed and beg her to answer, to just talk to him. He thinks something in him breaks when he nods. Okay, he whispers, but we're talking about it tomorrow. Good enough, right? It must be, because she smiles at him and he settles into the bed next to her, turning to the other side and shifting until he's comfortable. Silence stretches between them, filled only by the sound of their breathing. It's familiar. It's normal. Night, Robs. a bit of silence following his words. "Night, Steve." Approximately 1 hour later, the front door to Steve's house creaks open and then shuts again. Look, Robin isn't stupid. She knows that what she's about to do is a bad idea. An awful one, really. And she's actually reconsidering that first statement because she is kind of feeling a little stupid for this. But really, she can't help it. A few weeks ago, although it started to feel like more than a few, Robin went on patrol with Nancy. Her memories from that night are hazy at best, although she won't admit that to anyone. She remembers slicing away at the vines, a distraction while Nancy shot at the demo dogs nearby. She remembers hearing an odd sound and turning, and she remembers seeing it. She doesn't quite remember what it was, or if she even knew what it was. She remembers a flash of darkness coating everything, swirling around her like smoke, twisting like a snake coiling around her, and then she remembers it being gone. She never told Nancy about it, nor did she tell Steve. Since then, she's been different. That's the only way she can describe it. She's lost her appetite, for one, and she hasn't been sleeping well. Of course, that includes the sleepwalking that Steve is so concerned about. Other than that, there's been the more minor differences. But most prominently is the feeling of coldness, a chill that follows her wherever she goes, as though she's constantly standing in a blizzard, snow swirling around her, wrapping her in a blanket that does more than harm than good. It unsettles her. She has told nobody. But this isn't the only concerning new occurrence, because sometimes in the dark of the night, she has urges, not to hurt anyone, not to cause any chaos, just to go to the lab, to the Creel house, to the largest known upside-down gate within Hawkins, and she never does. She suspects that's where the sleepwalking came from. Tonight, however, feels different. She's tired. She's done with feeling this way, with feeling like something is just slightly off, but not knowing what. She's going to get to the bottom of it, and to do that, she's going into the upside down. And if fear drives her to leave obvious footprints in the ground in case she doesn't come back home, and someone has to look for her, then this is a secret kept for her only. She finds herself in front of the gate, wide-eyed and hesitating. Maybe she should turn around and get Steve. She'd feel bad for waking him again, sure, but he would want to be here for her during this, right? The grime and the vines glisten in the dim glow of the moonlight. She looks up at the stars, visible through a hole in the foliage above. The dark sky speckled with freckles, with the faintest of lights, and she thinks about how she ended up here. She casts a longing glance over her shoulder, but eventually tenses her shoulders and throws herself through the gate before she can overthink it. She, predictably, falls to the ground with a grunt as she makes it through. Her chest smacks against the grimy forest floor, the slippery texture drawing a disgusted groan from her as she slowly moves to push herself up. Her hands slide in the substance on the ground. She fails to repress a shudder. This place is disgusting. Really, she doesn't know how Will managed to survive a week here. Even without the creatures hunting her down, she thinks she'd vomit on day one with how slippery the ground is. Robin briefly wonders in a thought so fleeting and so unlike herself that she isn't sure whether she even really thought it or not, whether any of the liquid below her is blood. She shakes her head. It's just the environment getting to me, she tells herself. She finds that she doesn't really believe that, but that it's okay. She'll just figure it out, what's going on, and get out. And then she'll go home to Steve, and they'll laugh together, and by next month this will all be just a distant memory. She just has to take the first step and get to the bottom of this issue. Easy, right? All she has to do is sneak around a bit. The hardest part, really, will be maneuvering her way through that so she doesn't step on the vines. But even then, she's managed before, so a sharp growl is what silences her thoughts, limbs freezing up at the sound. She finally manages to turn her head after what feels like an eternity, but was most likely only a moment. Only a breath. Behind her stands 2 demo dogs. Her blood runs cold. They growl and snarl and snap at her, but they don't move closer. Robin feels her hands start to shake and grip her shirt tightly, cursing herself for not bringing a weapon. She takes a step back. Something seems to draw their attention away from her, and she swears loudly when she recognizes the chittering of a demogorgon. She wishes Nancy could have been here, or Steve, or even Jonathan. They're all taken on one of these. So has Hopper, actually. But Robin doesn't think she would go to him before any of the others, even if his fight was more recent. But she hasn't fought one before, not alone. Thankfully, they don't seem interested in hurting her. Not yet, anyways. No, instead the three of them seem more focused on pacing in front of the gate, the dogs occasionally snapping at each other. Robin watches as the demo dogs lunge at each other, the two falling to the ground in an aggressive tussle. The Demogorgon intervenes, swiping downwards and knocking one of the dogs away. It roars at both, and returns to guarding the gate. It almost seems to be watching over them, babysitting perhaps. She wonders if Steve would relate to it. After what feels like too many minutes of relative silence, she finally hears something, a noise that wasn't there before, not a growl, not a snarl. It isn't anything she's ever heard before. Something inside of her insists that it's worse. Robin turns, slowly, widened eyes landing on a familiar figure behind her. Swirling dust, a creature built of the particles in the air, and probably other things that she doesn't want to know about. She feels frozen, almost staring at it. She can't turn and run for her life. She can't call for help. She can't breathe. It draws closer, slowly, as though curious, as though cautious. A snake of dust curls around her shoulders, soot coating her arms like paint. She tries to step away, finally finding the strength to move, but finds that her foot is stuck in the ground. Panic claws its way up her throat as she tries to pull away, each attempt proving to be for nothing. She registers louder growling from the demo dogs, chittering from the creatures that have now turned to her. Amongst the snarling and snapping of the creatures guarding the gate, a piercing, terrified scream rings out through the woods of Hawkins, and then it's silent. Alright, my stars, that is the end of part 1. This will have about this is a 15 chapter fic, so we'll have about 15 parts maybe, depending on how long some of the chapters are. I have read this before, and I kind of do know, so most of these chapters will have their own video, because some of them do get long. However, for the time being, you get this lovely chapter, and maybe some other Stranger Things fanfictions are going to pop up in a bit as well. I've been really into Stranger Things for the past 6 months since the finale came out. My obsession's back. So I'm really focused on these right now. However, I will be trying to get more Percy Jackson out, as well as maybe some Hunger Games, and some other that I might find for you guys. But for now, I really hope you accept these, and I really hope to see you all in the next one. Don't forget to eat, sleep, take care of yourself, and do whatever you need to do. My socials and Discord server in the description down below. And I always love to see your guys' comments, whether it's commenting if you like it or not, commenting throughout the video, or just wanting to say hello. Now, this is the end. Bye, my stars.